If you are pregnant or you've recently had a baby, this podcast is for you. I am your host, Kath Bequee, a physiotherapist working in women's health and mum of three. Inside my online program, Fitness Mama, I just love helping support women to care for their bodies during pregnancy, prepare their bodies for birth, and support their after-birth recovery, helping them feel confident and strong inside out during this important stage of their lives. In this podcast, join me each week as we dive into all things pregnancy care, childbirth, and postnatal recovery, helping you through every step of the journey. It is absolutely possible to feel amazing and confident in our bodies during this motherhood journey, and I want that for you. Come and say hi to me on Instagram at @fitnessmama, and let's dive into today's episode. Hello and welcome to another Spilling the Milk series where I chat to a range of amazing mums who have been through it all. During this Spilling the Milk series, my guests talk candidly and openly about their pregnancy journeys, challenges along the way, their birth stories, and importantly, we also discuss the fourth trimester and beyond. So we talk recovery, mental health, physical health, and everything that goes along with this journey we call motherhood. Today's chat is with the lovely Marie Fahd, and Marie describes how she went into labour earlier than her planned Caesarean booking. She describes the joys and challenges of being a mum of two. And this interview, it really perfectly describes the reality of the juggle of motherhood. And we had to stop recording a few times due to babies and dogs, and that is the reality of chatting to any mum who has a 4-week-old baby and is at home with the family. So I trust you are going to love this chat today with Marie, no matter if you're planning a vaginal birth or a Caesarean birth. Before diving into this episode, though, I did just want to say thank you again for all your support in this podcast along the way. So this podcast is what I call my fourth baby. I love it. I love chatting to the guests. I love getting DMs from you, and I love reading each and every review. So thank you so much. And in fact, sharing, rating and reviewing this podcast is probably the most important way to help this podcast reach more people. So if you have one pregnant friend or a friend or family member who just had a family, please consider sharing this podcast with them to help them on their journey. All right, let's dive into this episode. Marie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I feel honoured to be able to chat to you about your pregnancy journey, your birth story, and how motherhood is with two children.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm more than happy to talk about mum life. I feel like that's just my life 24/7 now, right?
Oh, you're right.
I've got the little one with me, so you may hear little gurgles and stuff. We've got our guest appearance here with little Leon. He's only 5 weeks old today, so it's like a bit crazy. He wants to cuddle all day.
Absolutely. And if we need to stop for anything at all, that's fine. For those who don't know you, could you please introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about you?
Oh my gosh, I did not expect that question because at the moment I feel like I'm just a mum right now. So I'm Marie, and how can I even introduce myself at the moment? I'm a mother of two. And I do share a lot about my life and the reality of what it's like being, a mum, and, I do a lot of beauty-focused things and stuff as well. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I'm sorry, I've got the worst baby brain. If there's something that you think of, can you please let me ask or something, because
Absolutely.
I'm a little stuck right now.
Well, Marie, let's start off with your journey to becoming pregnant. Let's focus on beautiful Leon. You've got two babies, but let's talk about your most recent baby, because I know he's only 5 weeks old and he's, it'll be right on your mind. So tell us, how was the journey to becoming pregnant?
Yes. Oh, look, falling pregnant with Leon wasn't exactly the easiest. When I was trying with Malik, it was definitely a bit more straightforward in that sense. Before I had Leon, I had a miscarriage. And then having gone through the miscarriage the first time was really difficult because it's kind of a situation of ignorance is bliss, right? So if you are pregnant, you've never had a miscarriage, you don't have those worries on your mind. You don't have these concerns. You can enjoy your pregnancy. Everything's all rainbows and butterflies, and you are just happy. Whereas once you've had a miscarriage and then you fall pregnant, you're always not wanting to have high hopes and try not to think about things and just kind of get through your normal day to day. So I went from being like excited about a pregnancy bit to, being able to tell people to like being excited and happy I'm pregnant, but not being able to fully revel in the moment of it. I just wanted to get to the point where I had the baby. And it was a more comfortable pregnancy versus the first one, I have to say. He's a very different kid. So, but all in all, everything was healthy. But that's another thing too. So when you've had a miscarriage, you basically wait for every scan. So we announced much later than people expected. I think a lot of people, because, we do share our life quite publicly, a lot of people were quite surprised at how far along I was when I announced, because I was mid into my second trimester at least by the time I announced. So for everyone, my pregnancy was very short. It wasn't long. Everyone's like, I feel like you just announced you're pregnant. And I was like, well, I actually did. Yeah, technically I did. I did only just announce it. So it's been a little bit like crazy in that sense. But now that he's here, he did decide to come early as well. So we had a planned cesarean on the Wednesday, planned, as you do. And then I fell, my water broke. I didn't fall, sorry. It sounds like I'm saying I fell, but my water broke on the Monday night. I was in bed with Malik. And then suddenly I just felt my water break. And my water, I did not know baby was a Bulgarian, went to plan everything to date. And by this time, I had already forgotten any research. I was like, I don't need to research anything to do with a natural delivery or like what to expect anymore because I'm having a cesarean.
So, Sarah Marie, how was it? Can I, and tell me if you don't want to answer this question, but how was, like, I know you didn't announce your pregnancy till much later, but having had that previous miscarriage, did that affect your enjoyment of the pregnancy looking back on it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think people talk about that enough. I think a lot of people don't, I think, truly appreciate how hard a miscarriage can be. Even nowadays in our society, I really don't think people truly grasp, the mental effects that something like that has. And there are some people who can have a miscarriage and are totally fine and they process it completely like whatever, like it's nothing. And that's totally fine because that's how their mind works. And then you have situations like being pregnant and announcing when you would be announcing or like saying they're pregnant and you're trying again after you've had a miscarriage. So yeah, when you do have that positive pregnancy test finally after trying again after a lot, it is bittersweet because you're happy, but you just can't truly enjoy it how you were prior, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks for sharing that. Now, you mentioned you had a planned elective. Do you mind if we dive into that a little bit too? Because, again, this is something I don't think we talk about enough. Like I feel maybe there's some stigma attached to that or, did you have particular reasons?
Yeah, absolutely. Say there's a stigma behind it. There absolutely is. There absolutely is. So many people, when I said I was having a cesarean, they're like, did you choose to have one? So why did you choose to have one? You don't want to have one natural. And, you do get some people genuinely asking because they weren't sure. And then you get some people who are asking why wouldn't you have it natural? I had a girlfriend who chose to have her cesareans. That's what she wanted. She has her own business and stuff, and she's a very scheduled person. For me, I actually had a brain hemorrhage a few years before I fell pregnant with my first son. And so my neurosurgeon and my OB already knew that they were going to want me to have a cesarean because they don't want me to go into labour and push they said if you really wanted to push for a natural, we could, but you would still be a higher risk and we'd rather not have that risk of something rupturing. So I was like, that's fine. Like, whatever is going to get the baby here the safest. And then the fact that I was able to say, okay, well, this is the date and stuff and kind of plan as much as I could, that worked out well in that sense. I mean, you can only plan as much as you think, like as much as a person planning for a baby can plan, right? So that was like journey-wise, that was for me, I knew it was going to be a cesarean. But in saying that, with Leon, he came flying out. Like, so I almost wasn't able to have the cesarean with him. So I was laying in bed with Malik and, you know, taking in those last, well, what I thought was the last few nights of having my toddler next to me. He's still sleeping next to me with the baby. It's a whole thing right now. Oh, little munchkin. I don't know if you heard him. He did a little squeeze and a fart while we were talking. Fantastic. And then I felt my water. I felt something that I was like, okay, that doesn't feel right. I think I should probably go to the bathroom and check that out. And when I checked, I was like, oh, I think my water may have broke. You know, it was like 2 days earlier than my booked-in cesarean. So I called in my husband and I was literally sitting, sorry about the visuals, but I was literally sitting on the toilet and I'll go, don't freak out, but I think my water did just break. That'll be little Leon, you'll hear in the background. So can you please get me my phone? I need to call, my OB gave me a number to call, you know, for the delivery room just in case something like that happened, which I highly recommend everyone have a plan. If you do go into labour early, ask your OB what is the number you call, because they're the ones that get everything into motion. I called them and she said, yeah, well, that definitely sounds like your water's broken. It was that light pink and stuff. And I suggest you get your bags, you know, call someone to look after your son and make your way here. Don't freak out. You've still got some time. I go, okay, because it felt like period cramping. She said, yep, that's normal. I go, all right, so what's my red flag? Because I have no idea what to expect with a natural labour. I'm a booked-in cesarean. I have no clue. The last time I looked at this was 3.5 years ago. No one's going to remember, like 3.5 years ago. She said, well, you know, if you start to have some labour pain, you start having contractions.
This episode is brought to you by Baby Bee, Australian-owned and designed prams combining quality, safety and style. Not only does Baby Bee let you try their prams at home with free returns for 9 months, yes, that's 9 months, they also offer an industry-leading 3-year warranty for total peace of mind. With thousands of 5-star reviews, around-the-clock customer care, and up to $300 of free accessories with every pram, what are you waiting for? Go visit www.babybeeonline.com and check them out for yourself. And yes, for listeners of the podcast, there is a 20% discount code. Enter FITBEE, FITBEE 20 at checkout, and T's and C's apply.
And the word contractions, I started in contractions. So literally my water broke and contractions started. It was within a few minutes of each other. Like everything was bang, bang. And she goes, oh, okay, well, that sounds like a contraction. So she completely changed her tune from get someone to watch your son to, you know, your in-laws can come and pick him up from the hospital. So it's best you just kind of make your way here. I was like, okay. Still not realizing the situation because I had not studied it at all. I didn't know, okay, well, if your water breaks and everything's starting, that could be active labor. I didn't know none of this stuff. So saying bye to my son, my husband's trying to get me in the car and I just want to say bye to him. And then I'm still having contractions. He's like, baby, we've got to really go. And I was like, you just need to back away from me. I just want to say bye to our toddler. Because in my head, I'm going in for an operation. But the second time, I'm like, oh, I could be leaving someone behind. So I really just want to get a cuddle in and a kiss in. But that in turn woke him up. So then he was crying. And then as I was doing that, my mother-in-law walked in and, you know, she was the saving grace to be able to take over. So getting to the car, rushing to the hospital, as well as safely as we can get to the hospital. It was nighttime, so there's no traffic. And I was like, it was the funniest conversation. It was like something out of a TV show where I'm having contractions and I'm swearing at my husband to just shut up. I was like, you just need to shut up. And he was trying to explain himself, like why he's trying to rush me out the door. I'm like, now is not the time to be explaining things to me. You just need to shut your mouth. I'm having a contraction while he's trying to mansplain to me. Like, now is not the time, dude, to be mansplaining this to me. And I'm like in emotion going like, then he stopped. He's like, okay, I probably need to stop. I was like, I just need you to stop for 1 minute and stop talking. I'm like, I'm having a contraction. And so once he stopped, I was able just to vent why I was in a delay. I'm like, dude, this is my thought process right now. I have to kiss him because I'm having an operation. I had one of those like mum moments where it was just like everything in one hit. Then I was over it because, you know, hormones, you have roller coaster moments, and suddenly I was excited and happy. And we had actually other than that initial car ride, it was actually a really nice car ride in because we were both like, dude, we hadn't gone through this before. We've had a kid, but we've not actually gone through this whole thing, and trying to call my sister-in-law because she's coming in for the labor, and me and my husband are like, we need to film this. We need to record this because this is an interesting thing that's going on. And so it was really funny. Like, I'm having contractions in the car park and my husband can't do nothing. Like, they can't do anything. You're having a contraction. So there's not much I can do. He goes, I'm just going to film you. I'm like, yeah, film. I'm like, just film. I'm having a contraction. He's like, I hope we make it to the door. I'm like, yeah, me too. And we're just having like little revelations going up the lift. He's like, this is the last time it's going to be 3 of us. It's going to be 4. And I'm having a contraction, but I'm genuinely like, yeah, like you're right. Like, we're having all these lovely little revelations. Oh, that's all right, buddy. And get there. And the midwife goes, so how far along are the contractions, would you say? Like 5 minutes, 10 minutes? And my husband's like, oh, max 5 minutes. It wouldn't be more than that. And the other lady goes, okay, I'm just going to go and get the whole team to come now. She's saying this to the other midwife very calmly. I now know what a calm rush looks like because they calm rush really well, that I was dilated 6 centimeters and that the baby was like coming out. So I was not aware until I was in the recovery room that I had dilated 6 centimeters. I was in active labor and that the baby was flying out, and they all thought I genuinely was about to have vaginal birth, not a cesarean. I had no idea. They told me all of this when I was in recovery. And then I turned to my husband and I was like, so it looks like I owe you an apology because you were right to rush me at home because I would have had a baby in the car park, because all of this, my water broke and my contractions started, and within the hour I had a baby, and I had dilated that fast. I didn't know any of this until later. They even had a different OB to check how dilated I was because they were waiting for my OB to arrive. And I can see he didn't even verbally say anything. He just looked at the midwife and gave her a nod, like as in, yeah, she's good, she's okay. And then later on told me he was checking to see if the head was there. I was like, what? I had no idea. They were so amazing at keeping me calm while rushing me and, having my epidural. Now I know why the anaesthetist was waiting mid-contraction while on my back, waiting for the contraction stop to quick do my epidural. Now I know what all of this was how it was. And my sister-in-law still managed to come and arrive on time as well and take photos, because she took photos. She's an artist, and a beautiful photographer. And so she took photos of Malik's birth and was there, and it was such a beautiful thing to have her there. And then, we had the same thing with Leon, and it was a different experience too, because going into labor is so different to a booked-in cesarean, It was really quite magical that I got to experience both. It was crazy. And I feel like you get more of a hormone rush, that endorphin rush, maybe when you go into labor, because I didn't have that with Malik, whereas with Leon I had that. But the difference was that I went into labor at the same time.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so when Leon was born, in those first few minutes and that first, in recovery, like, how was that? after having gone through labour, you've had your caesarean?
It was amazing for me. It was like very empowering for me. And I've heard people say things like that when they had their babies. And I was always sad I never experienced all these things that people told me about with my first son, because with my first baby, it took me a while. I was not one of those mums that saw my baby and thought, oh, wow, like I've got I didn't have that at all. It took me a while to, like, I knew I wanted to breastfeed, so I was breastfeeding and all of that and just to be a good mum. But I felt like I was waiting for that kick. Like I was waiting for that. Like, shouldn't I be laying here with my baby thinking, wow, oh my God, like we just had a baby. Like, look at this amazing baby. Like I didn't have any of that. And I felt so sad. Whereas with Leon, I had that from the get-go.
So let's dive into that a little bit more. You mentioned you didn't feel that maternal rush and it took a while. Can you compare like your experience now, like in terms of the mental health side of things compared to your first Malik?
Completely different. Completely different. Oh, babe, shh, stop it. For those who don't have a dog, if you have a dog and they have a baby, they become overly protective and bark at a leaf going by. Like it's very different.
So in this interview, we've got dogs, we've got babies, we've got the works.
Normally I'd be able to separate things, but it's one of those times where like I've got, you know, a team we're doing like the garage and the shed outside, and then like hubby's working from home in one office, and then the baby's here. So usually I could separate him much easier, but they're kind of going from the back to the front to walk out the door, and then if I open that door, he'll walk out the front door. So it's really one of those days where it's like, it's a little tricky. It is a little tricky. And then I've got the baby.
And you know what? I think everyone listening to this will identify that, you know, with that. It's motherhood. It's crazy. Stuff's happening in the house, stuff you don't have control over. You know, we either could have cancelled this or rescheduled this podcast, or we think, let's just do it in the midst of all this craziness.
And I'm telling you, something will happen if we change it and do it again. And I could put him in my son's room, but I just cleaned those bed sheets. So I'm sure we can all relate to that. So mental health wise is completely different to my first son, completely different. I realise now, looking back, that I definitely had postnatal depression or some sort of depression going on when I had Malik, because this time around I feel so good. I feel so strong. Mentally I have more energy. I mean, I wasn't able to sleep while I was pregnant this time, so I feel like the sleep I am getting with a newborn in comparison, even though it's not much sleep, it's sleep in comparison to what I was getting. So I do feel a bit better in that sense. But like maybe it's also knowing, like the knowing of what to do and being confident in myself. Maybe that's also helping me mentally. Whereas the first time around, the anxiety, I've got strong parental anxiety, always worrying about the baby, what's going on with the babies, the baby breathing, second guessing myself. I hated when people gave me their opinions because I was making me feel like, what, am I doing the wrong thing then? Because like everyone's got this opinion, and then people comparing me to other mums that I know are not experiencing what these people are telling me. I know, I've spoken to them, but just the fact that they have the nerve to tell me like, oh, well, she's been really good, or, you know, whenever I go there, their house is clean and stuff. I'm like, I know her. That's not the case. We've both vented to each other about this. So the fact that you think she's okay, she cleaned because you're coming over, you know, like that's it. Like I know these people, but feeling compared to was really like frustrating for me. I just couldn't. Having people over, like I didn't want to have people over. Well, we had people over, but I just, because I knew it was going to be good when they were there. But like the thought of having people over, I could have just stayed in a hole by myself with the baby, and struggling to breastfeed was so hard the first time round. I breastfed my first son for 2 years, right? It took me 3 months to get to a point where I found a really good international board certified lactation consultant with a similar mindset to me, which I think makes a big difference. And once she helped me from that 3-month mark, it improved. And I was like, okay, great, I'm able to feed. Whereas this time I'm like, no, I know what I'm doing. I don't need opinions. Even the lactation consultants at the hospital trying to help me, they're like, oh, so how's everything going? I'm like, great. And all the things that I had done prep, they were trying to question it. And I was like, nope, I'm good. I don't want to look at a pump. I don't want this. I don't want that. It's fine. I've got my nipple shields. I've got breast pads. I've got everything that I can alternate between. I knew what I was doing. I knew how to use the tools at this point. And so even something like that, mentally, it was great. You know, can you imagine you having some depression and anxiety and then you're sitting there with bleeding nipples, sore pain. I had mastitis, which didn't help. I had that twice. I had vasospasm. They thought I had thrush of the breast. I had a breast cyst that needed to be drained with a needle as well. And so it's like I had everything on top of that. So I think like just mentally horrible state of mind the first few. And I honestly thought I was doing fine at the time. I genuinely, now that I say it out loud, I'm like, you are not doing fine. That is not okay when you say it out loud. It's not okay. But at the time, honestly thought I was fine. I was like, oh, that's nice. So now looking back at it, I was like, wow, I can't believe I actually thought I was okay. I thought I was okay mentally, and thinking friends of mine may be struggling. I'm like, no, dude, you're struggling. You're the one struggling. But now it is chalk and cheese. I'm like in such good spirits. This time last, I would never have been sitting here talking to you if it was the first time round. I would have been so mentally overwhelmed that just something like this, sitting down and having a chat, the thought of having the baby that I need to juggle would have been so overwhelming for me. Whereas now I know it's fine. You can sit down. You've got a newborn. If you need to tend the newborn, that's okay. Like everyone's understanding. You don't need to feel like you're going to disappoint people. Things like this happen. And, you know, especially on a parenting platform.
And isn't motherhood amazing like that? Like we don't just suddenly become a mother. And that's why I love that term matrescence. It's the becoming of a mother, and it's a journey. You know, you're so much more confident second time round, but you've been through a whole 3.5 years of motherhood to get to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. I could never have been like this the first time. This, I think, truly comes from being an experienced mum. You know, it was, there's this one episode of Bluey that I watched, and Chili was sitting down on the step feeling like a failure. And her friend, because she had a friend who was all her puppies, like her puppy daughter was like the best. She was like nailing motherhood. And she goes, I just feel like a failure. And her friend goes, you're doing really well. She goes, yeah, but you make motherhood look so easy. She goes, I've got 8 kids. And she's like, what? She goes, yeah, this isn't my first. I've got like 8. And she goes, wow. And it was just that, you know, it made me go, wow, yes, that's so true. You compare yourself to someone. No, my first rodeo, I've got like 3 kids. I've got, 4 kids, 2 kids, whatever. Like you think they're nailing it. It's just because they know what they're doing. And I feel like that's me now. I was Chili. Now I'm her friend.
Gotta love Bluey, hey?
Love Bluey.
Amazing. So recovery after a caesarean. You're 5 weeks post. How are you feeling physically? How do you feel that recovery is going?
That's another thing I recovered much better from this time. And this is the difference. And I think this is actually important for people to know, because I didn't know this until I was delivering, and I kind of had this gut feeling like I said, look, when I was recovering from my first caesarean, I sneezed. So I feel like something pulled. I just feel like something wasn't right with the healing. Maybe there's some scar tissue. Absolutely right. There was that scar tissue bonding from the caesarean on my uterus and on my bladder. So he was able to fix that during this caesarean. And so even though the healing was more painful, I wouldn't say painful, more sore in the beginning few days versus the first time, because of the fact that they had to, do the scar tissue, there was more done. The actual healing of it was so like a million times better. So even now, if I sneeze, it doesn't hurt. I feel like a bit tense, but there's no sharp pain. Like there's none of this pain I was getting the first time. So standing up straight was different. Like everything was different. I was healing how all of my other friends who had a caesarean had healed. My husband's very involved. Like he's not the type of person who I'm having cesarean so he doesn't find out things for himself. He likes to also know what's going on.
And he said, I just feel like, all these stories from the other friends of mine who just had cesareans, it was just different to you. And I said, you know what? It's funny you said that because that's absolutely true. I actually spoke to my OB about it. And now I'm having the same recovery. I'm like, wow, if something doesn't feel right, you're probably right. It might be the scar tissue. I didn't realize that was a risk of, scar tissue bonding when you have a cesarean. So I think that's probably why, people who know about it probably prefer not to have a cesarean if they can, so they don't have to worry about that scar tissue bonding. But buy yourself a pair of Plussy recovery shorts because it just helps with your swelling, your recovery, your support. Like, I am all for it. You think I'm getting paid by SRC. The amount of times I have told people having babies, oh, you need these shorts, cesarean or not, you should just get these shorts. It's like really, really good. I'm wearing them now as we speak. I think that helps as well. But yeah, the recovery has been good. And take the painkillers. I didn't take the painkillers like I should have the first time. So then my recovery was harder. I didn't recover how I should have. This time I followed exactly what they told me to do. I didn't feel guilty. I was just like, I'm just going to take it.
Isn't that interesting? And is that why you didn't take the painkillers first time round? You felt guilty?
Yeah, I had midwives there seeing me walk bent over, still trying to be active. And they're like, look, I really think you should take, because, it's like you've got endone and things like that. And they're like, just for what, maybe even just while you're here, maybe just to get on top of the pain. They were trying to say to me without telling me to take it, because they're not allowed to tell you should take it. When it comes to something that's very strong, they're like, maybe you should consider, your pain relief a little bit differently. Don't feel guilty about taking your pain relief. And I did feel guilty to take it because I was like, oh, but I'm going to be breastfeeding and stuff. Second time round, I'm like, no, can I have some pain relief, please? I remember one midwife like, oh, you need it, that's hard to get off when you get out of the hospital. And I was just like, dude, I said, when I'm out of the hospital, I'll worry about it then. At the moment, I'm not out of the hospital. I know it's not my first rodeo. Thank you. So now I'm more just like, give me the pain relief so I can recover the way I'm supposed to recover. And I did everything correctly. And when I left, I just had Panadol when I left.
Yeah.
Because by day 6, you're okay to just be on Panadol. But the first, 4 or 5 days, you need extra pain relief, guys. Don't be a hero if you're able to do that, My body.
So good. Love that. Now the physio and me has to ask Sarah Marie, what are your after-birth recovery goals? Do you have any, have you got a bit of a postnatal rehab plan sorted? How are you going to reinvest back into your body?
What's interesting? It's interesting you asked that because I was like, oh, I'm going to have another baby. I used to work out a lot prior having Malik. I knew I was pregnant before my pregnancy test showed positive because my body changed instantaneously that much. I was always really energetic and strong. Suddenly I felt really out of breath and weak. And I said to my husband, I know I'm pregnant. He goes, you are crazy. It's like 3 days in. I go, no, I'm telling you. And I went and bought pregnancy tests, was doing pregnancy test day 4. And obviously 3 days 4 until day 7. I was like, I knew it because I was so tired. But because that pregnancy was so tiring for me, like abnormally tiring, I have not worked out since before. I haven't had like a proper regime since before Malik. We have like a Peloton. That's great because you can get onto the Peloton. But I haven't had like what I would normally say, hey, my designated 3 days and just be loyal to it, work on my core and work on my pelvic floor. I didn't do that after Malik because I was like, I'm going to have a baby. I'm going to have another baby. Like I'm not going to worry about it. So now my mindset's different. I feel much better. I'm actually waiting for the OB to tell me I'm allowed to work out because I'm excited now to focus on my pelvic floor. My pelvic floor and my core are my 2 number 1 focuses right now. So I'm really excited about doing it. Whereas the first time I was like, I didn't really want to. And I honestly think I was having some if you sneeze, you pee a little bit and stuff. But I do think a lot of the uncomfortable feeling I was getting, and that was from the scar tissue. But now I just feel so good. So that I learned the hard way to do your pelvic floor and your core. That's why I've been adamantly wearing my recovery shorts and making sure I'm having a look at a few things. I'm like, okay, I need to strengthen my back. I need to do my core and then do my pelvic floor. And once I have got that regular and strong, I can work up to my next thing. And I used to love doing weights, and my husband's like, we've got a Peloton. I'm like, yes, I'm going to be using the Peloton. They've got classes on that thing. I'm like, I'm going to, like, as soon as I get the all clear, I want to try and do 3 days a week.
Yeah.
If I can do 3 days a week, just to get my routine back, I'm going to be able to crack walnuts with my pelvic floor by the time I'm done.
Oh, that's so funny. Now,
that's my aim.
That's so funny. Now, you bring up two important things. Firstly, everyone listening, you know how much I love my pelvic floor and core. Like, this is what I do. And I did not word Sarah Marie up at all to say that.
I didn't realise that was your thing. that was like, a happy coincidence.
This is what all of fitness is about, is restoring your pelvic floor and core. But secondly, you bring up an important thing. People seem to think just because if I've had a caesarean birth, I don't need to work on my pelvic floor muscles. And unfortunately, that's just not the case. You've still had 9 months of baby and the fluid and all the weight sitting.
How wrong you are, my friends. If you think you don't need pelvic floor exercises once you have a caesarean, I was one of those people that didn't know. I did not, even my mum. My mum's like, really? You still have that problem even though you had a caesarean? I was like, right, that's not fair. I didn't think. No, it has nothing. It's not the pushing. It's the actual carrying the baby. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. So well done, Sarah Marie. Good endorsement of pelvic floor.
I didn't know
core.
that you were big on that. I didn't know that was your thing.
I'm a pelvic floor physio, and Fitness Mama is an online program for pregnancy and postpartum to help restore the core and get stronger again. To help.
Oh my God. So I said the right things.
So that you can get back to things like Peloton or, if people want to get back in running or whatever it is, but safely. So, yeah.
You are going to be my golden girl then, because come from next week, that's my 6-week mark. That is my current focus, is my pelvic floor and my core. That is literally my goal things right now. If I can get those two things like down pat, I understand, because my core was amazing before I fell pregnant the first time. That was never a problem for me, and I see a big difference. Like, I'm actually even getting, and this is something people don't realize, I'm getting like a hunch like on the back of my neck because of the fact that my core is so poor now. It's actually changed my whole posture and my whole body and all my body, and people don't realize that.
It doesn't matter if you're the strongest woman in the world. If you've just had a baby, your foundations are weak, your pelvic floor and core are weak. Like that, ultimately, that's what's stretched and gorgeous.
You can see him in the camera, just popping and looking at you.
For anyone listening, this is when we need video because we've got beautiful footage here. Leon, yeah. So let's wrap this up, Sarah Marie. What's the biggest lesson you've learnt from becoming a mother?
Follow your intuition. I feel like a woman's intuition, a parent's intuition, especially a mother's intuition, like carrying your child, is never wrong. Never wrong. I have never been wrong. And the times that I've not followed my intuition, I've regretted it 100%. I honestly cannot think of one time I followed it where I've not regretted it, and where I haven't followed it and where I haven't regretted that. Like, that to me is a big one, because you don't realize when you're, this is of course let's just say, mental health wise, there are some exceptions, sometimes in that regard that, their intuition might be a little off, they might maybe have more extra anxieties than they should. But just generally speaking, your intuition, I would never second guess it, because the bond you have with this child, there's particles of your child in your brain, that you deliver. Like there's part of your actual baby left in your body. So there's scientific basis as to why you have this strong bond generally with your child. Like if you're breastfeeding and your baby's crying in another room and you can't hear that baby, your boobs know. Like there's a reason why, like for everything. But that for me is always the one bit of advice I follow. So, for when times get tough, you need like-minded people so you don't feel judged, because there's no right or wrong. It's just what's right for you. And that's another thing I learnt the hard way. there's no, wrong way to do it. If it's right for you, it's fine. You don't have to, there's no rules. There's no book. There's apps that I deleted. I used to have the Wonder Weeks apps and I couldn't relate to it. So I ended up deleting the app because I was like, I just feel like I'm looking at this and the fact that I can't relate, I just couldn't. I just was like, I'm better off not having something like that for me personally. Whereas I have a girlfriend who has that app and she follows it a lot. But I do also see a lot of anxieties in her because she feels like she needs to follow something that is, it's really just a guide, like just for information. It's not like, you need to be doing this.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. We did it. Dogs, babies, we did it. Thanks so much for...
I am so sorry. It is crazy town. I am more than happy to come back if you ever need me.
Not at all. No need to apologise. And wishing you all the very best with the rest of your motherhood journey. It's been lovely hearing your story. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me on. I'm definitely going to be looking into all your core and pelvic floor things, like 1,000,000%.
Amazing. Well, we'll catch you soon. And before I sign off, remember my team and I will be putting together the show notes for this episode with all the links, including how to connect with Sarah Marie at fitnessmama.com/podcast. Have a fabulous day, everyone, and I look forward to you joining me next week for another episode of the Fitness Mama podcast. Thanks for listening to the Fitness Mama podcast, brought to you by the Fitness Mama freebies found at www.fitnessmama.com/free. So please take a few seconds to leave a review, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and be sure to take a screenshot of this podcast, upload it to your social media, and tag me at Fitness Mama so I can give you a shout out too. Until next time, remember, an active pregnancy, confident childbirth, and strong postnatal recovery is something that you deserve. Remember our disclaimer, materials and contents in this podcast are intended as general information only and shouldn't substitute any medical advice, diagnosis or treatment. I'll see you soon.